With the beginning of Split 1, there's already been some insane finishes with the former top team Fnatic losing their opening match against Team Heretics, starting the season off on a terrible foot after their IGL Boaster made comments that he would have won Masters Madrid if they qualified. And of course he had been clowned on all around Valorant, but is it really merited, or have they just been having an unlucky time this season so far? Well, I dived into Fnatic's recent match to see what was really going on with the former kings of Pro Valorant, and if they can rebound from this terrible start. But one way you can recover from subpar content is with frame drop. Whether it's podcasts, interviews, or my favorite, gaming content, frame drop easily takes the footage you have and turns it into viral clips that you can upload on YouTube, Twitch, or even TikTok. And with the new AI enhancements, frame drop has just gotten better, with clear AI-generated subtitles in over 25 languages, as well as detecting your best highlights to share with the world, with minimum work on your part. So check them out in the description. Thanks framedrop.ai. Before I can dive into the recent match for Fnatic, we need to look back at why they were unable to qualify for Masters Madrid, and it really wasn't that much of a throw. Just like for NRG, they lost in the single elimination semifinals against a team that came out of nowhere and counter-stratted them so effectively in 2-0 fashion. And while that was a pretty dominant loss, they didn't actually look that terrible. They just didn't have it completely figured out that day, losing a close map 1 where Karmine Corp were able to put away the map thanks to full buys like round 20, which we'll take a closer look to see how Karmine Corp counter-stratted. So pretty much every round on Fnatic's defense, they have not fought A Rebel too hard, usually putting up some initial resistance but then pulling back onto site. Karmine had read this clearly and had Martine take space early, behind the Viper's wall just in case Fnatic changed their plans, which they hadn't, as Boaster had to move back to a deeper hold on B, while Chronicle and Leo had to hold back on site with no information outside of directly on site. So Karmine just does a 5-person walk all the way here, giving Fnatic no time to rotate Boaster before Martine just satchels through the door with his showstopper. While he got slowed down to the point where everyone on Fnatic could get off site, a lot of the time he would have gotten a kill on Chronicle, as he's just on an island with no real support to be traded off of. Either way, it gives Karmine all the space onto site, with Fnatic completely blind, as they have to move back and regroup for a 5v5 retake. Karmine are able to make it harder by putting down the Viper's pit, but they don't all just stay inside of it, as Narrate takes a great off angle around A main, where he can trade off of Martine, who is continuing to be aggressive around one of the only other paths on a site, where all the Fnatic players are grouped up at. This is an insanely good setup, as they're ready to take fights early in these choke points, rather than letting Fnatic take duels together in the Viper's pit. And even though it ends up getting crazy on site with the lockdowns, since Karmine has so much space on site, this ult trade is actually more harmful for Fnatic. With Boaster dying and the spike ticking down, Derke presses too hard to make a play and is eliminated, leaving Leo to be taken out by Martine. So really thinking about this round, it's crazy how clean and in control this young Karmine Corp looks against the seasoned Fnatic team, who really just used the same retake strategies from last year that netted them such a dominant season with 2 major trophies. But in just the 6-month offseason, Valorant has completely risen to a whole nother level, as simple straightforward retakes with a bunch of superstars doesn't really work as much anymore. We saw that with the blowout win Sentinels had against NRG. You can't just have a solid meta playbook with prodigy level mechanics anymore. You need the most organized and disciplined teams with a deep playbook and excellent counter-stratting to be the top of the top in most of the regions. That's why we saw Team Heretics, Sentinels, Gen.G, and Karmine Corp come out of nowhere to take the top spots from teams like Na'Vi, DRX, and now Fnatic. And after that surprising loss to Fnatic, they were unable to rebound, which has always been an issue for this team, as their mental in games where things just don't fall into place for them can result in them taking more and more hero plays that doesn't seem to work this season, making Fnatic not look like the same super team we saw last year, and ultimately led to them losing 2-0, being humiliated and eliminated from going to Masters Madrid. And while a lot of people on Twitter and VLR clowned on them for losing against what was the meme team of last year in Karmine Corp, it was clear that Karmine Corp was just a really great team with really great coaching that can look at the game plans Fnatic has put together last year and counter-strat them effectively, as Fnatic just doesn't seem to change, and really it didn't work out for them. What really put the target on their back was the comments Boaster had made during his live streams around Masters Madrid.
They did on Breeze and on Split. And Gen.G, I think once you played them once, is what I found was if I played them, when I was playing them in scrims, I was like, I know what they're doing now. And if we play them again, I'll be like, I know every kind of play that they have. Like, this is my list.
Okay, well, everyone take a screenshot and come back and flame
if
him.
If we lose versus Heretics, I know where this is going.
Yeah, flame his ass, flame his ass.
And with that extra ammo for both rival EMEA teams and non-Fnatic fans, all eyes were on them to prove that they had just one bad game and could beat one of the 2 best teams that made it to Madrid, with the young Team Heretics team as their opener. And it was a perfect time for Boaster to prove that he wasn't all talk and that Fnatic are still the best of the best. But of course we know how that went, with them losing in 2 maps with Icebox being an absolute blowout at 13-4. So I wanted to look at a few rounds to show why Fnatic doesn't look like the same team we saw last year with the whole same roster. Let's first look at round 7 on Icebox, where Fnatic look to start getting into the map after winning 2 full buy rounds in a row now. If they win this, they just might start looking like their old selves, being able to string rounds together early. But that's not how this round goes. Fnatic plays aggressive on A, hoping Derke will take first contact with his op to get the first kill, like what would happen all last year, while Chronicle is just trying to get some information and pull back towards Alfajer. Heretics, though, are focused more on B, as they try to avoid Derke as much as possible. They push Chronicle back with a slow and Gecko flash, which is perfect on this map since he can easily retrieve it and use it again in 10 seconds for when the real push onto site happens. With the player advantage on this side of the map, they're able to slowly clear all of B as the deep Viper's wall forces Fnatic to go full 5v5 retake, which would be fine for them, except for how little information they have, as they have no lurk to put pressure anywhere except where Team Heretics knows they'll come from. This is because of where they have Benji Fishy set up for this whole round, with the ability to get information in mid and on their own flank, while also having the ability to activate a flank of his own when the spike starts ticking down and the trades start coming in. Unlucky for Team Heretics though, they don't get the spike down before Fnatic all rotates, actually putting Heretics in a very uncomfortable position. But this is where Fnatic has been hurting themselves over and over again this season, as Derke tries to take a 1v4 duel with his knives as he jumps past the wall. A really bad individual play that causes Fnatic to have to follow his lead to trade off of him, with Leo getting a kill, but ultimately this play puts them on the worst end of the trades when the gunfire ends. Even though the spike is down with the time ticking low, Team Heretics are actually up in not only players, but also information and space, as they know where the last of Fnatic should be, while Benji Fishy is just for the first time getting to B. This doesn't seem to be communicated effectively to him though, as he doesn't check his angle, keeping them in the round. But since Leo retreated so far, Chronicle can't contest the spike going down. And with a good reason to know that if there is someone in Snowman, that they would be alone, Reigns and Boo swing together to overwhelm the lone Chronicle, to put Leo in an impossible 1v2 he can't convert. Ultimately, this round shows that even when they're given mistakes from other top teams, they've been pressing themselves too hard to win each round, resulting in them playing undisciplined, giving up easy kills while their opponents are smart enough to always have a backup plan or way to isolate favorable duels, getting rid of how good individuals these players on Fnatic are. And rounds like round 7 started happening more and more as Fnatic started to fall off the deep end, as each player seemed to want to take rounds into their own hands and take these hero peaks against the whole of Team Heretics, never resulting in anything good for them, as Team Heretics had a clear game plan and they stuck to it no matter what. While they did get blown out of Icebox, they started to look more like their old selves on Lotus, as the map was so close throughout, with Fnatic mainly struggling towards A site, like in their game against Carmine Corp, which Team Heretics started to take advantage of on their attacking side, to force an overtime that could have gone either way. But it's clear that the pressure to succeed was pushing down on this roster, as experience didn't win out, as Team Heretics were able to put them away at 17-15 to bewilder Fnatic, sending VCT fans everywhere in a frenzy. But when really looking at this game, it did start very rough for Fnatic, but Lotus looked a lot better, with them keeping up with another world-class team. It looks like they just weren't on a lucky streak to make it to Masters Madrid, but actually the real deal, sweeping Fnatic in 2 straight maps to move Fnatic for the first time in a while to a losing record early, with them 1-2 so far this season. So with them starting to split on the wrong foot, how do I think this roster will do going forward? Well, I'm going to be a little less critical and doomer about this team, as they're still a top 4 team in the region and favorites to make it to the last 2 major events this season, as they've only really lost against the 2 best EMEA teams right now in Carmine Corp and Heretics, which both just had their number and counter-shrouded them well, something a lot of other EMEA teams just don't have the capacity or skill to do. So while they're definitely not the best team in Europe, let alone the world, they're still contenders in any and all matches they face, because this core is still unbelievably talented. There just seems to be a lack of strategy and innovation from this team that is now required to be at the level they were previously at. And it's clear that the game has evolved since last year, and Fnatic seems to just be lagging a little bit behind, which has happened to every previous dominant team outside of Loud. But I think they'll bounce back this split and finish with only one more loss to the remainder of the teams, as I think Foot could take them down as well. But overall, they're still a top team in the region, and I expect them to make it to Shanghai. They've just been unlucky in facing the two teams that are just better than them right now. Make sure you check out the latest episode of Exit Frag as we go over all things Split 1, as well as how the new agent Clove might just be taking over the next pro meta. So check that in my description, where you can also find a link to try out Frame Drop for yourself and make viral content with ease. Thanks Frame Drop for sponsoring this video.